Hi guys, thank you for subscribing with me. Let's look at our third type, which is desert ecosystem. By the way, itself desert, the first thing that has to come in our mind is that it's a big, barren, abandoned, and dry land without plants covered with sand. A desert can be hot and cold at the same time. So let's look at its definition, the main definition of desert ecosystem. It is the driest ecosystem on earth, and this is the reason it has less vegetation and less diversity of life, which also receive little precipitation annually or little rain. So let's look at the types of desert ecosystem. The first type is hot and dry, the second type is semi-arid, third type is coastal, and the fourth type is called desert. So let's look at the first step by step. The first one is hot and dry. These kinds of desert ecosystem have hot and dry climatic condition through the air and have very low annual rainfall. The hot desert ecosystem is basically found in the Central America, South Asia, North America, in Africa, Australia, and the other countries. There are extreme variation in temperature, and the soil is rough and harsh as well. So let's look at the second one, which is semi-arid. The desert ecosystem is quite similar to the hot and dry desert ecosystem. This kind of ecosystem has hard rocks, stable ground, less sand dunes, which is that. And also let's look at its temperature. It's not as extreme as hot and dry as a desert ecosystem, but it has a great basin. A great basin is a great example of this semi-arid desert ecosystem. It receives a lot of rain as compared to that of the normal desert ecosystem. So let's look at our third type of desert ecosystem, which is coastal desert ecosystem. The Antanama Desert in the Chile and Namibia in Africa are a good example of the coastal desert ecosystem. Such desert ecosystems are found near the coastal lines of big water bodies like the oceans, seas, and other generally affected by the ocean currents. Winter fogs are also common in this coastal desert ecosystem. They are of more hospitable than the other deserts, and therefore they have more of flora and fauna than the others, which includes the plants and animals. So let's look at our fourth type of desert ecosystem. The third type of this desert ecosystem is called desert ecosystem. This desert ecosystem comprises of abundant rainfall throughout the winters and less in summers, and generally has chilling winters with snowfall. The summers are short, moderately hot, and moist here. These are usually covered with snow dunes. Those are the types of desert ecosystem. So let's look at the characteristics of this desert ecosystem. The first characteristic is that it has less rainfall or precipitation. It's also acidity, wind velocity, humidity, and extreme temperatures. So first of all, let's look at the less rainfall or precipitation. Less precipitation is significant desert feature and the reason behind its dryness of this desert. Desert receives seasonal rainfall that occurs for a small duration, just around 25 to 30 centimeters. So let's look at its aridity. The aridity implies a deficiency of dry moisture as it is experiencing less rainfall, which results to the aridity. So let's look at the third type, which is wind velocity. Wind velocity is high in this ecosystem of this desert. That's why desert experience most dust storms or sandstorms of higher intensity, forming these sun domes that are basically known also. So let's look at humidity. Humidity. Its humidity level is low in the daytime, or it turns out to be high during the night. That means during the day, which is the day, it has the level of humidity is low, while during the night it ought to be high. So let's look at our last characteristic, which is extreme temperatures. The extreme temperatures is that this type of ecosystem experiences extreme hot and cold temperatures during night and day. The days happen to be hot while the nights are extremely cold. So after that, let's look at the functions of desert ecosystem. As you can see, first one, it serves as a habitat to multiple species of animals and plants. The second one, it acts as a carbon sink. The third one, it's a desert ecosystem contributes to the production of salt. The fourth one is they have unusual landscapes and oases. The last but not least, it has a perfect ecosystem for preserving the historical belongings. So first of all, let's look at the first one. It serves as a habitat to multiple species of animals and plants. These animals and plants have adopted and they survive under this extreme environment, or also known as this species. That means this species, they survive under this extreme environment, which can either be hot or cold. So let's look at it acts as a carbon sink. That means this bacteria in the sand helps it storing of carbon monoxide and the same or carbon dioxide in order to prevent it from getting into the atmosphere. The third one is talking about the desert ecosystem contributes to the production of salt. The salt that we use, the one we use in food, comes from this desert ecosystem. It's originated from this, or others is also known as iodine. So let's look at the first type, where they have unusual landscape or osmosis. Each landscape is fully covered with sand. You can also agree with me compared to other ecosystems. No wonder this type of ecosystem is that of special. Then let's look at it. The last one, which is talking about, it's a perfect ecosystem for preserving its historical belongings. Why do we say that it's a perfect ecosystem for preserving the historical belongings? That means it keeps for all the ancestors that were years ago until today, they still exist in a proper and well condition. So let's look at the structure of this desert ecosystem. Basically, as we know, the desert is that it's land that is full of dry and also only contains that of sand, whereby basically it has the sand dunes. So let's look at its structure. Its structure, as it's shown, it has the producers, and at the same time down there it also has its consumers. The producers can that be of primary and at the same time of secondary, and the consumers of same time can also be of that of primary and that of secondary. So let's look at the producers. The producers can either be the fawns, as you can see there. They have, it's vegetation which are the producers in which plant feed on, as the diagram itself shows. And also let's look at the consumers. The consumers is talking about the tortoise, the reptiles, the snakes, the hawks, as you can see there are a lot that is also talking about. So basically, the producers helping to produce the food through the use of photosynthesis in these plants, on which these herbivores or the consumers feed on in order for these species to survive. So, well, we have roughly talked about the definition of desert, which is an abandoned area, as we've mentioned. We've also looked at the types of desert ecosystem. We've also discussed the function of desert ecosystem, its characteristics of desert ecosystem. We've also looked at its structure of desert ecosystem. I hope we have learned a lot, as well have learned that a desert ecosystem mostly comprises of hot and its cold that is also comprises of code. Thank you for subscribing with me.